This is Show versus Business, where pop culture meets pop money with me, the real Theo Harvey.
And myself, Mr. Benja.
So, Mr. Benja, let's get right into it. How's it going?
Yeah, man, it's going good, man. But I got to ask you a real quick question. I know you didn't want to bring this on the pod, but why are you training your AI to do your job and take your job? What is this about? Aren't you supposed to be taking everybody else's job, not your own?
Man. Oh wow. Good intro, man. No, man. AI is here, man. I'm super excited about it. So much so that I'm having it do more and more things that I didn't realize I would allow them to do. One of them was to actually create marketing material for a customer. And I felt so. Long story short, let me just tell you this quick story. A customer came to me. They were doing some work for them, helping them with branding and all those other things for their medical practice, and they were struggling with like what should we say. So they gave me some stuff that they had, some ideas that they had. Right, I
Hmm.
mean, basic 101 marketing stuff. I could answer pretty quickly. It was just like, well, look, what's the problem you're trying to solve here? What's the audience avatar? What are the
Right.
things that you're trying to highlight? What's the benefit for them? So I gave them some high level things. They still came back, well, I don't know what to do here. So I just put in Chat GPT, baby, and boom. I got an answer in like 2 seconds. They looked at it and they said, sounds good. Send me a proof. Simple as that. And so I was like, wow. So yeah, man. I'm seeing
Hold on.
AI.
Were you like? Hold on a second. Let me let me pull up this document. ChatGPT.com. Let's see, pulling up the document now. Was it like
Well,
that? Or?
well, yeah. I'm starting to use ChatGPT at the beginning of my processes a lot of times. Like it's like I know
Yeah.
what to do, but like I just don't feel like thinking about how to start the project. And so a lot of times I'll go to ChatGPT just to give me some fluff first, and then I kind of iterate off of that. And so I knew kind of some general concepts to give her to start and see if she was going to write it for us and then give it back to her. Because I'd rather they do it that way because, as you know, people want something done. You don't want to give them stuff. You say rather they kind of figure it out on their own, so they can say you can say,
Hmm.
well, let's learn the principles, right? So you can repeat it later. But since she didn't or they didn't at the time know what they kind of wanted, and so I said, "Well, I have something for you," and then that's what I did to ChatGPT, pull out some information for me so I can get it to him. And now, guess what? That's going to be my repertoire. It's already one of my digital assets that I can kind of spit out. So yeah, I'm finding it to be very useful in the deliverability of quick content, around principles that I know, right, of how to kind of deliver. If I know some high level concepts that I can talk to people and educate them. So someone said this, I read this podcast. I know you heard this podcast. He's like, you get the information away for free, but the implementation costs money.
Yeah. Yeah. I've
That's
heard
what
that.
I'm starting to look at, right? It's like, can ChatGPT help me with the implementation now? Because I can talk about it,
Hmm.
right? But then the implementation takes time and effort and energy that I don't have.
And you know what? Most people don't realize that. Most people don't understand the level that ChatGPT gets to or can get to. They're still thinking about it as search and
Mhm.
creating cute pictures. So, like when you say, "Yeah, I used AI to this," okay, he must have just searched on the internet really thoroughly because he used AI and he's going to send some really nice pictures over. They're not thinking of, deep structured implementations and process trees or any other possibility that you might use it for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still early days for it, man. And I think some of the things that we're going to talk about is just it's amazing how fast it's all moving. With the deep reasoning, one of the things I like to do with the O1 model for ChatGPT has reasoning, so you can kind of see its thought process. What they call a chain of thought, or
Yeah.
so they can kind of get a sense of what it's thinking about, and I can kind of see, okay, yeah, that's exactly what I would do, or right, how I would think about that problem. So I think that I'm loving that aspect of it, right? And then also I kind of add in some, if I also added like, hey, provide some content from social media, right? Find links so I can go to those links and look at them myself and see if they're, legitimate links. So one time it sent me some links. I clicked on them. And it's like website dead, or just bad link. I said, oh, come on, ChatGPT, don't be hallucinating on me now. Stop it,
Yeah,
stop it. So stuff like that, man. Little tricks of the trade beyond
that's when you need to
prompting.
jump. That's when you need to jump over to Bing GPT, uh, aka Copilot.
Oh Lord, jeez. Well, we'll talk about that. Gemini just released some stuff.
It's just a different way to access. But I noticed it connects to the internet a lot more with the whole Bing connection. So I don't know what they're doing over there. That's extremely different. But I do know the internet piece is different. But yeah. Either way, man. A lot of AI stuff going on, and that's why we wanted to have this show today. There's been some news happening, and people are seeing the new videos coming out. I know you've got some of those that you've seen, especially from VO3. Uh, you know, it becoming kind of a religious cult. There's even one situation where the AI blackmailed an engineer that was working on it. So it's like this is nuts, and I don't know where it's going.
I know, man. This is crazy times we're living in. I mean, so I guess we can kind of think about this in certain different areas. Let's maybe talk about what's happened with social media. I mean, we know we've been driven by algorithms or AI that's driving content to us, right? To
Hmm.
kind of, I think that we talked about this on one of our podcasts, like the For You page and the following.
Yeah,
Most people are just defaulting to the For You, where the algorithm is just pushing stuff to you, versus following, finding content that the people you follow send you. We're
yeah.
all kind of defaulting to what the algorithm, because quite frankly, algorithm is probably better and understand what we like. And I think that is kind of
Oh yeah.
scary with the long term implication, excuse me, of where this is all going with AI. If we're all defaulting to the into the For You, right, with the algorithms pushing our way, what's going to happen when there's AI generated content out there now? What is that going to look like, and who's going to own that?
Right, right. And I kind of applaud Instagram and Threads for doing this because they resisted the whole people thing. They wanted to just jump ahead into the rise of the robots, but they actually
The whole
left the
people of
option
it all. These people, man. Who needs people for businesses?
for Shaw. Exactly. And with the little pestering and everything, they kept on in both Instagram and Threads the ability to tap on that top logo and get the following. And it's like once you log in and you see three threads or three Instagram posts, three reels or whatever, you're just like, huh, my friends, the people I follow, yeah, fuck them. Look at this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just who did that first? Was it Twitter, or who was the first one to kind of make the algorithm just the default? That everybody, used to be where you had to follow someone to get the content, delivered to your feed. But maybe we'll do some research and figure out where that came from. But so I say all to say is, like, people, we talked about this also on another podcast. Like, people are not searching anymore for stuff, right? They're just letting the algorithm dictate how they're thinking. And so when they say they found something, it's really the algorithm pushed something in front of your face based on what you liked before. So it may not be anything uniquely different or unique or different. So for instance, I always talk to my wife and get a sense of, like, what the algorithm is pushing her way versus what's pushing my way. And so, because we have different likes and interests. And it's kind of funny. It's like the lot, you can see that diagram, so, okay, I'm black, like Star Wars, I have a business on, it's like these Venn diagrams, right? So whenever I talk to her, the Venn diagram that's like black, it's like everything she's seeing, I'm seeing there too. So it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
okay, that bubbled up. Like, I think you told me about this, like this whole term black fatigue, right? That
yeah.
bubbled up in her algorithm as well. And I said, oh, interesting. Now we talk about Star Wars. She ain't got nothing for that. But
Part of the algorithm says deny, deny Star Wars to this person. Engagement will drop off. Just don't do it,
exactly. I mean, she literally fell asleep during the Rise of the Sith. So yes, so it knows
bro.
her well.
If the algorithm was checking for Star Wars and snoring at the same time, like reading the audio off your phone, it's like, is that snoring? They fell asleep. Do not recommend Star Wars to no.
Well, hey, guess what? This could happen. Did you see about that news? OpenAI and Johnny Ivy, what they announced?
This is weird. No, go ahead. I know what you're talking about, but go ahead.
I Johnny Ive, you don't know, he's the guy who's the hardware designer guy from Apple. He has signed up with Sam Altman and OpenAI to create AI products to deliver to the market. And basically, they gave OpenAI gave him $3 billion, which is crazy, to kind of do this. And so for his company, and so yeah, the goal obviously is to get more data. And to your point, there will be a snooze if you fall asleep during a movie or TV show. I guarantee that will feed into the algorithm to determine what to feed you later on later. So it's just, you know, it's more and more I'm thinking about these AI tools, man. I feel like, the Matrix. You remember
Hmm.
when Neo woke up and he was and James, you better have some memes of freaking Neo waking up in that battery in the Matrix. I want to see that right on this short, but I want to
When he
see.
holds the back of his head.
Yeah. Don't you feel that? It's like we're like these batteries that's feeding the AI now, and so we are actually in the matrix now. It's not even funny because every our lives, how we watch stuff, what we talk about, they're listening. They create more products, around us. They're gonna create, and they're taking all this data, and guess what? They're making billions off of it. So this is kind of where we're going to, I think, with these AI tools, and to your point, what does it mean to be human? I think you mentioned that on one of our podcasts. What does that mean to be human and unique and different when everything you're doing is becoming commoditized to feed an
Yeah,
algorithm?
yeah. You know what? On that point, here's a quick little bit on why uh, the robots will just keep running over us. And we talked about it whenever say, hey, I want a real person to do this for me. I want a real person to talk to when I go to the library. I want a real book to read. I want a real person to make my coffee. Okay, let's say there are 12. 12 basic silos of life, like what you eat, what you get up and do, who you talk to, whatever. They're just these little silos. We'll say you categorize them into 12 groups, right? Um, what you learn, what you're entertained by, etc. Just whatever. If you care about one thing enough that you want the authentic version, like somebody will be like, hey, listen, I want a real burger made with real meat. I want the bread made with flour, da da da. I'm going to go to this little shop down the street. That's where I get my burgers from. Everybody else should follow my lead. There are 11 other silos of people who care about entertainment, who care about convenience, who care about fashion, who care about anything but your fresh 100% USDA ground beef burger, who don't give a damn about it. And they're just like, yeah, man, whatever. So when we think like this, we don't think that we're outnumbered, and because we're outnumbered, we're going to lose. So I may be worried about the freshness in my burger. You may be worried about the air quality. Somebody else may be worried about, can you wear tennis shoes to the event that we're going to anyway? And all these things, it's like, yeah, for all these things we care about, there's like 11 other people. So it's like a 1 to 11 ratio thing that don't care. They just don't care about your burger. They've got other things going on in their minds. Now, we do this with games all the time. It's like playing the game. It's like, dude, we got like level 3, the best ever. Is that the flying level? Yeah. Some people just don't care, dog. They
Mm,
just don't care about flying. You can't make it. You can't make something that's reliant on the artisans. That's what I'm getting at. You can't create something that relies on the artisans. You've got to satisfy enough regular Joes. If it was about quality of food, obviously McDonald's would be out of the way. But there's enough people who are looking for convenience of speed, convenience of location. It tastes like salt and fat. They're good with that. Um, there's enough people who just don't care that it can survive.
hmm hmm
So
Well, and then that gets into our other conversation is the shitification of the internet, right? Everything kind of goes down to the least common denominator or the most common denominator, where
yeah.
everybody's kind of in a pot, right? Because these are the things that the most people care about, right? So if
Hmm.
you're a black person, you care about, you know, soul soul dancing, black fatigue, Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter, but it's just like enough black people care about that, it's going to blow up into your algorithm, even though you may not even care about yourself, right? And so,
That too. That too.
yeah, so it's kind of like, to your point, it's like, they kind of have to kind of get that if they want to ensnare enough people. I would argue, though, I think AI is getting so good. It's supposed to be better at personalization, right? So it could,
Hmm.
in essence, get more and more granular the more information it knows about you, right? So
Yeah.
that's where the hardware comes into play. That's where ambient listening devices come into play. That's where your search history comes into play, right?
Yeah.
And all that stuff is trying to narrow down to exactly your pleasure centers to get you to click to buy something or do something. And so, yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
it's
and
but
we were just talking. We talked about this on our episode about TikTok. Where it's like, hey, it's stealing all your data and all this, and it's just bad for the environment and
mhm.
China, blah blah blah, all this stuff. And you could be very true, and some kid's going to be like, so
I
yeah,
don't
I'm gonna get mad at that kid, and then the kid's gonna be scrolling TikTok and see some art generated by AI, and he's gonna type in the comments, art should be generated by people. A bunch of people in the comments are gonna look at that kid and say, "Hey man, it's a fresh picture of Goku riding a skateboard. I don't care.
I
That's
don't
a
give a
fresh
damn.
picture. I'm reposting it." And writers don't care about artists. Artists don't care about writers. You know, uh,
Yeah.
cooks don't care about either one of them. They're just like, hey, put some pictures on my menu. I'll cook it myself. But nobody cares about anybody. That's what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
AI is just going to fill in all these blanks.
Well, I just want to kind of pause here too and just talk a little bit about, like, how did we get here? And there was a good book, a recent book that just came out. I haven't read it yet, but she's been making all the rounds. Of author, her name is Karen Howe, and she created a book called "The Empire of AI: Dreams and Nightmares in Sam Altman's Open AI." And really, yeah, she's a reporter that's done, basically non-authorized reporting on AI from the
Hmm.
early stages when it was just a research lab, right? That Sam Altman was able to recruit
Hmm.
Elon Musk, who was out there before he was Elon Musk, right? We all
Yeah.
remember as the doomsayer for the coming AI apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
So Sam Altman was able to recruit him, and with that help, he was able to kind of start getting AI the funding and money it needed to finally come out with Chat GPT 3.0 that took the internet by storm, right? A couple years ago. So that was the beginning of how this evolved. But she made a great point about, like, you got to think about these companies are like empires back in the day, like the British Tea Empire, or
Yeah.
or company or countries like British Empire or French Empire. They're these nation states that were kind of dictating, where we were going in society, right? And these big companies like OpenAI, like Google, are kind of have their own priorities, and they're just utilizing people, any way they see fit to kind of move their agendas forward in their empires. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to kind of listen to her talk about this. And one of the things she talks about is, like, AI is kind of like a cult. It's like a religion now within Silicon Valley, right? Either you're two sides
Hmm.
of it. It's like, hey, AI, we build AI, it's going to become God, and it's going to get us to utopia, right?
Yeah.
Magically, some kind of way. Or we have to we have to own the AI, even though it may take us over, because the robot's going to take over in all
Yeah.
worst case scenarios. Then we better get control of it, because at least we understand, it's better than another bad actor getting control. So this
Uh,
religious state is starting to, these people are legitimately fearful of what we're creating, and they're creating bunkers and all this stuff. And so it's almost become like this technology AI is becoming almost like a religious cult, if you will, within Silicon Valley, and it's kind of weird.
yeah. I was watching. There's a thing on Vice about people who are into wearables, and I forgot what they call them, but not just wearables like the Joni Ive one. I'm talking about wearables like, um, what do they call it? Implantables or something,
Mm-hmm.
where they've actually integrated this technology into their bodies. So they've
Mm.
got they've got chips underneath their skin. Guy who lost an eye, he puts a an infrared sensor in his eye, and in his eye socket where his real eye used to be. And it's like, screw a glass eye. I got this titanium thing with these wires, blah blah blah. And they're all geeked about MindLink and all this.
Yeah,
And
Neuralink. Yeah, I know Neuralink is the one that
Neuralink,
Elon
yeah,
Musk came up with. Yep.
which is actually a very promising technology for, like, people who are paralyzed and things
Hmm.
like that, and has all these applications. But how how I don't want to say scared, but how concerned are you about all of these changes and putting the entirety of humanity into future shock?
Oh yeah, I am concerned. I mean, this is May as or this is June 1st, but we just passed May as we're recording this, and this is new graduates out there in the workforce. I'm hearing more and more that this is going to be the lowest job market. The unemployment rate for new graduates is at an all-time low. Now, granted, it could be because of the economy and some other counterfactuals, but I have to believe it's the growing belief within corporate America, because I'm sensing in my company that anything I hire a grad for, ChatGPT could probably do. And so why
Yeah,
do I want to pay a new grad 50, 60, $70,000 to do this? So yes, I'm concerned for the immediate concerns that it will have on people's working lives, right? And we're not going to see the same kind of progression of younger people into higher paid positions. I think the only path there is, like, true entrepreneurship. They have to learn how to create value on their own without having to think through, another person, a corporation. Now, granted, how
yeah,
you going to get the skills? That's a whole nother conversation because usually we both worked in corporate America. I'm sure we gained tons of skills, right, to kind of help us run our own
yeah,
businesses. But I do feel like, yes, an immediate need to kind of get us to this future shock faster with AI. It was becoming very disruptive in immediate needs.
yeah. Um, there's a lot of places to be worried about, and it's like, not just on social media where we're going to be experiencing the whole dead internet thing. Um, like, it's one of those places where I just have no idea. I usually have, well, this could happen or that could happen or this. I don't have a valid set of steps in my head. I mean, I could write something out on the whiteboard or whatever, but I'm like, I don't know what happens, because a lot of what happens is what we want to happen
Mhm.
or allow to happen. And that's what I was getting at with the, some people care, some people don't care. I could see a mandate going down, and maybe for some reason, maybe everybody in the world decides, you know what, we're not going to use AI for this. And if you do, we're going to drive to your house and punch you in the mouth. Um, where it just becomes a social thing, right? Where you decide not to do something a certain way. Like, it's a social thing, at least in America, to stop at a red light. And if no one's around, wait at least 3 to 5 seconds before you speed through. you know, if
Mhm.
you're 2 o'clock in the morning and no one's around. But it's just a general social contract that you wait at the stoplight. And for some reason, we kind of adopted that. You go to another country, they're like, man, fuck them lights, and they just don't care. And they've got another social contract. So I'm wondering, in the future, and by that I mean, like, next August or whatever, this August, what does what starts to change in the human psyche? It's a big question, right? I know, but wasn't trying to get that big of a question, but it's strange.
Just start, you just letting the spirit move you. I get it.
What will the world be in the future?
I mean, yeah, I agree, man. I think this we're being bombarded with just innovations happening so fast and furious, and then there's no guardrails to this now. Now that there is a government that's truly entrenched into what these guys are preaching, right? When it comes to technology, so unabated technology is really the order of the day. So it does seem a little overwhelming, and it's hard to kind of determine where it's all going to fit. I think their concern is, we talked about this before the podcast, prisoner's dilemma, right? We have to be selfish and we have to control this technology at all costs, right? And so that means lesser regulations. That means, who cares about the immediate disruption to the employment structure of, or the social contracts,
Or
be
your
damned.
life.
Or be damned, because we have to control it at all costs. And so I think that's why it's kind of hard to see when you have unabated, um, what's it, unlimited power,
Right. Yeah.
like Palpatine said. Then yes, it's going to be
So
Wild Wild West, brother.
yeah, so like one thing with the Wild Wild West is, okay, you can count. Most people don't look back and think about the predictions they got wrong. What would be a problem? What wouldn't be a problem? But then when they look back, they're like, "Yeah, I never saw that one coming." Um, you know, TikTok, I didn't see that one coming. Just everybody dancing in the little, because they're all vertical. Everybody dancing like this now.
Good point.
So they
I never
fit in
thought
the
about that.
camera. You go to the club and everybody's like, and I'm like, hey, what happened to the whole that's gone now. Widescreen dancing, get out of here with that.
Good
Only
point.
only vertical dancing.
Good
Um,
point.
and spicy content. I thought somewhere along the way that we would have started to clamp down on that a lot more, and everybody's just kind of like, no, no, let those bits go by. We like that.
Well,
We,
I
we,
think it's going to evolve. I think they're trying to clamp down on organized spicy content, but OnlyFans, that thing is just OF, if you will. It's still gonna proliferate, man. I mean, it's gonna even get bigger and bigger, right? Yeah, man. I don't know, man. It's hard to tell. I think you and I are pretty good at keeping our pulse on it,
hmm
but I don't know if anyone knows at this point, right, where it's all going to go, because it's evolving so fast that human nature does not evolve as fast. Let's be honest. So
Right.
it's going to be interesting to see when you have technology that's moving a million miles an hour with human nature that maybe changes every 100 years or so with some new things. How's
Yeah.
that all going to interact and play out in that this new social contract? I don't know.
We
I Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just say we don't know that fast, and we don't know how to adapt that quickly. And let me throw out a term. I threw out a term, future shock, earlier, and I want to just make this, a solid thing. Future shock is a term coined by Alvin Toffler in his 1970 book Future Shock. It describes the psychological and social stress individuals and societies experience when overwhelmed by rapid technological, cultural, and social changes. Toffler argued that accelerating pace of innovation and information overload in modern life can lead to disorientation, anxiety, and an inability to adapt as people struggle to process and adjust to constant change. The
Mm.
concept highlights the human cost of progress when change outpaces our capacity to cope. So, and that's from Grok.
Irony, guys. You guys don't know what we're talking about there. That's irony.
Yeah.
So, wait. When did this come out?
1970.
Wow. Because
So, people not being able to.
there's a rise in anxiety with
hmm
younger generation, overwhelm. Just people in general. Mental health is a big thing that people are always talking about,
Yeah.
and I think this is the rise of this future shock, right? Of obviously there's also this whole enragement increases engagement on these social platforms, so that's a
Yeah.
whole nother issue that can be good for your mental health. But yeah, wow, he predicted accurately where we're at right now in this fast moving kind of pace of society. And we talk about labor. I wish so she makes a good point in this article, in her book, Karen Howe, on the
hmm
rise of AI. AI could evolve anyway, any kind of different directions. What if you create an AI that learned like a human, right? You just put it out in the
hmm
field and just gave it some parameters, and it created its own view of the world, right?
You know
Or
what?
what?
We said put an AI out in the field. I thought about putting a robot out in the cotton field, and some good old boys being like, "Go on, robot, go on, get to picking that cotton, robot."
Because
Sorry.
no, it's valid. I think she makes a good point where it's like we really don't even know what human intelligence is. So how can we define what's artificial about that, right? And so
hmm
I think they could have evolved this any kind of way, right? AI, and there was, and she said they were all different modes of how to create some kind of intelligence that was artificial, right? Like you're creating, these learning models that they could do on their own. But what did they end up doing? The same thing all tech companies do, right? They had data, right? Their strengths. So
Hmm.
let's just do more of that. Find ways to suck up even more data and see if it can evolve intelligence on its own based on the data that's collected. Now, will that ever create artificial general intelligence, right? Or AGI? Who knows? But it's going to create a massive amount of data,
So
right? To determine
yeah,
what's next.
so I'm not even so worried about data running out, because if data runs out, you just get a room full of experts, and the AI gets to interview and talk to all these experts at some point. So, it's like, hey, we don't, here's all the medical data. And it's like, okay, sure, I have all this medical data. You sit it in a room and have it talk back and forth. It's like, hey, should I save this kid? And it's like, well, how much money does the hospital have? Let's say this much, and da da da. It's like, well, this is a decision you have to make, AI. It's like, what are the social ramifications of this? And like the marketing expert in the room or the branding guy, like, listen, as a hospital, we can't do this and that without a certain hit to our reputation. And then the legal guy comes in. Well, AI, have you thought about this? Basically, you could just start coaching an AI to fill in a lot of the gaps between these pieces. And I think you will very quickly end up with something that is what we consider that, AGI, general
But
intelligence.
the thing is, that's not what they're doing though. Because if they did that route, they would have had these people in the room, and they potentially would have had to pay them for their time to
I believe.
educate the AI, right?
Okay.
But what they're doing is bypassing that. It's like if they're going to the internet, which is quote unquote free, and soaking up as much information as they can
Yeah.
to predict what these experts would say. So that way they didn't have to pay them. Does that
Right.
make
Right.
sense? So that's,
Yeah. No,
I
that
think
that,
that's
that
how they're
totally makes
coming up with
sense.
AGI. That's how they're
That,
coming up with AGI, in their opinion, because then that we don't have to pay for human capital, human intelligence,
right. Right.
to create something new.
No, no, that's totally correct. And what I'm saying with this thing about the experts is, you get to a point very quickly where it's good enough. Like, you know, you could tell Grokritter to be good enough to talk to people on, and we'll bring up the Reddit article. I'll bring up the Reddit article to make my point here. There was a Reddit AI persuasion experiment. I don't know if I know you heard about it, but what they did is found out that the most persuasive people on a popular subreddit turned out to be bunch of people, a bunch of actors that were AI.
Mhm.
So in this popular subreddit where people are arguing things, discussing things, learning and trying to figure out things and persuading each other, they put a bunch of AI bots in there, and the AI bots were all the most persuasive. And people are like, hey, let's listen to this guy because he knows what he's talking about. He's obviously had the experience. He's a real person like me. I like that guy. And it was a total breach of uh, trust and the terms of service of Reddit. But yeah, everybody was like, no, these AI guys who were talking, or they didn't know that, but these people who are talking here, they're the most persuasive. So you've gotten to a that's just good enough state. Um, and I was saying, if you want to jump to that next state, yeah, you just introduce like they do with call centers now. Um, where the guy's answering all the questions, AI answers all the questions by itself, and then when a hard question comes up, the guy's like, wait a minute, that's a difficult question. Actually, and the real person decides to answer to fill in the gaps.
So are you saying that AGI is basically just a smarter human being? Is that your definition? And they have more knowledge, and that's how you get to AGI?
I think that may be a little bit of a, a it's a little bit detracting from what's really going to happen. This idea of AGI, it's like we're going to get to these places that are close enough that either we can't tell or we don't care.
Mhm.
So it's like, hey, did a real doctor make that recommendation? Man, I don't know. I just plugged the stuff in, and I don't know if a doctor checked it over or not. Man, look, I gotta go. It's like,
Mhm. And I think that's generally looked up what AGI
yeah,
definition.
okay, yeah,
I mean,
I know.
it's or the artificial intelligence. It says hypothetical intelligence of a machine that can perform any intellectual task that a human being can, including understanding, learning, and applying knowledge across various domains. Essentially, it's the concept of creating AI that can think, reason, and learn like a human. I would argue that in some cases AI has done that.
Yeah.
Would you would
And
you would you would you believe that AI has passed already one of a key test that we've done recently? Have
I
you
think
heard of
this,
the Will Smith spaghetti eating test?
yeah. God, that's disgusting.
Well, Google's new AI has passed the Will Smith eating spaghetti test. Go look at the latest images of Will Smith eating spaghetti. It is 1,000% better than that nightmare fuel we saw just a couple like last year.
Yeah.
It's improved that much with sound. So that shows you how fast this is going when it comes to evolution. Um, and so I think in certain instances, what does it mean to be human and or human art versus AI art or human
Yeah.
images versus AI images is becoming harder and harder to tell. I think.
Yeah. So totally. And this is an issue. Um, I guess what I think is this little benchmark or this little test or this criteria of AGI is largely irrelevant. Um,
I agree. Yeah, I would agree.
it's like, well, can it cook eggs like grandma? It's like, yo, man, we're in the future. We don't even eat eggs anymore. What are you talking about? It just got to a point. It's going to be to a point where it's irrelevant. Like
Well, I
going to
think
the moon.
when it comes to just doing certain tasks, I think it's past like uh, 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 the whole Ghibli fiasco, right? Creating all these
Yeah,
images that look like a certain studio style. You can do images in Simpson style, which is quote unquote bypassing copyright, right? Intellectual property,
yeah,
which is a whole other fiasco. But I think what they're talking about is AGI there has to be a component of agents tied to that. So can it get me a great vacation in Miami, Florida, right, for my anniversary, right?
yeah.
Without just saying, "Hey, AI, go get me a vacation in Miami." Can it get to that point? And I don't think the agents
I,
are there yet.
I think this is more of a late night CNN news question or something that is itching people's curiosity for different reasons. Some person's like, hey, can I just plug and play and do whatever I want now and tell it to do anything? Okay, now I'm going to jump in. Now we're there. And you have the other people who are humans irrelevant? And that's just a question that's on their mind. It's like, there's certain people that no matter who they're talking to, at a certain point, they're going to be like, do you believe in God? And if so, what do you think he is or she is? And it's like, to some people, that's just a question. Um, but at some point, we're all going to be cosmic dust anyway. So, as far as AI is concerned, it doesn't care. And, I've been, ever since I've been using Grok, I don't think I care either. I'm
Well,
like,
I just think about that meme. F your couch, from so James, you got to find that meme, man. Put AI, on the couch, because that's exactly what you're saying. People don't care, man. They just, or social norms or anything, as long as they get what they need out of AI. To your point, and so it's gonna be interesting to see where this all goes for the future and what does mean, because we're talking about societal needs, right? We're
yep,
talking about corporate needs. There's 70% of knowledge workers are actually using AI in their business, but none of them are
hmm
telling their bosses that they're using it, for their jobs, because they
yeah,
know the more they reveal, the more they either going to get work, they have to do more work, or they're going to get replaced. And so I think there is a disconnect right now in corporate America on what's going to happen. How do you uh, incorporate AI into the job workflow when human beings are they're going to protect what's theirs and not let AI in it. Because for instance, there
yeah.
was an article that said all these VCs are hyped about AI replacing all these jobs and getting these agents to do all this stuff. But the one job it said it couldn't. The VC said that couldn't be replaced.
Venture capital.
Yes.
Clowns, man.
So it's just
Clowns.
like,
Get out of here with that.
you could absolutely replace venture capitalists. You could replace the CEO if you could have an AI that has some vision around what it was going to do. So yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see where this all that leads to. Real quick, do you want me to talk about this influencer? What he talked about is a pathway to um, how you can differentiate yourself in social media when it comes to AI proliferation.
Oh, sure. Theo's tips. Let's go.
Yeah, well, it's not my tips. It was just basically, I don't want to get this influencer's name right. I was impressed with him. His name is Callaway. He's got about 155,000 subscribers. So shout out to him. Only reason I give him because I listened to his content, who I thought was very spot on to some of the things that we've been talking about. But I think the big thing that we're seeing more and more is just the rise of these fake influencers, right? More and more content every day from AI. And
Yeah.
so, yes, the influencer age is starting to wane a little bit. I think people, made all this money, became gurus, but now we're getting to a point where that's going to start to fade away. And what we're seeing is like, I think there's 4 million IG reels, new IG reels, Instagram reels every day. So they're saying 5 years, this will rise to about 400 billion new IG reels every day. So this is going to be too much content versus the supply of content will be too much versus demand. There's just not going to be enough of people. So it's
Hmm.
just going to be this wild west of just content everywhere. And the algorithm, right? We talked about this, the For You page versus the following. The algorithm is going to push the best content that you want to you. It's not going to matter, if it's from Mr. Benja or Theo or this person, right? Because it's
Yeah,
the
that
best.
you actually want. Like
Yes. Well,
there's some content. Hey, man, my cousin sprained his leg. Yeah, but did you see LeBron dunk on that fool? And then he
exactly.
threw the ball at his leg. And sorry.
Well, you may want it. The algorithm probably is predicting accurately that you do want to see LeBron James dunk, but then just like TikTok, right? It's a distraction machine. I very rarely get on TikTok, and every time it's almost a time. Like I literally have to be very intentional
Yeah,
with TikTok, unless I find a time suck. Even me, someone who's, yes, I'm on the internet and doing stuff on social media, but I very rarely go on social media. I really don't post on Facebook, all that stuff. And so it's like with TikTok, the algorithm will suck you in so hard on distraction and stuff that you will like, but it may
yeah,
not be your intentional purpose, right, for being on TikTok.
absolutely.
So I think that's kind of where we're seeing where this goes, and so I think he mentions that this organic marketing, proliferation we saw will not work as much anymore, and so what's
Yeah,
going to happen is people have to, instead of just getting views just based on the content, how good it is, competing against folks, they really got to pay for eyeballs, for the right eyeballs. So say you want to reach doctors, kind of like ads now,
yeah,
but it's going to be more for organic, just to get people to look at it. Who cares about getting them to, click on stuff? This is
yeah.
about just getting people to look at it, and you're going to have to pay for
Grok,
that.
Grok is already doing that
Oh, wow.
for the most part. It's for the most part you have to pay to play. It's like, hey, you get your basic premier, service, and then we'll start showing you the people, and then the higher tier will start showing you the more people, blah blah blah, and
Hmm.
so people were kind of pissed about that, but it's kind of what's happening.
I'd be curious, people were dogging Elon Musk, but I guarantee that Twitter investment is worth way more money now, based on what you're
Yeah,
telling me with Grok and what it's doing there, and how people are still posting on Twitter, so, quote unquote Twitter. So
yeah, it's got this weird group cut out for it. I know I followed a bunch of streamers and influencers. They tried going over to Threads, and they're like, "Hey, you got 300 likes on this post. Why would you go back to X?" And it's like, man, I got 30,000 on X. What are you talking about? So for these certain channels, it's just like, yeah, whatever. I'm not leaving. And by the way, I do know about the issues with Grok. I used a lot of AI platforms, but even their Grok's white genocide fixation, that's another show.
yeah,
Um, very very problematic, and part of the problem is that this whole thing is, it's like, yeah, what if this tool is not good, is the most efficient thing for you? Uh, I
Ooh,
got issues.
yeah, that is a crux, right? Yeah. So I think that's the kind of questions we're going to ask with all these AI tools starting to proliferate. But going back to how do you win in the social media area, right? With these AI content, coming more and more. So one of the things he mentioned was that people will have to seek you out, right? Like you said,
Hmm.
because they know your brand, and so you have to be really clear on what's that one thing, one association that people can know you for, because
Hmm.
then you bubble that up to the top of their mind, and that takes focus, attention to detail, and all that, right? And that's something I had to kind of start thinking about too, more and more, because if you're for everybody, you're for no one, right? And so the more specific you are, then you can kind of bubble up to your ideal people with the content you create. And he said we have a short window for this, and I agree, because there's going to be just so much content. So in this
Yeah.
short time, how do you move these followers that you get, as many followers as you can, away from what they call these rented platforms like TikTok, like Instagram, and put them into own communities? One thing I do
Yeah.
is that email list, but the other one was you talked about heavily was communities, right? How do you create communities, that's behind some paywalls, or just in your influence, that follow you and comment and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So that's the goal. He said we have 12 months. Get your followers up and get everybody away from these rented platforms into your own platforms, so that
Yeah.
you don't, succumb to this AI apocalypse when it comes to your social media content. So I thought it was kind of
Yeah.
interesting. I wanted to kind of, give them a shout out, because this is something that I've been really engaged in over the last several weeks.
Yeah. I'd like to hear what people have to say about that. I don't know if we have any more stories to that to go through, but yeah, man. If you have any comments, thoughts on any of this, let us know where we missed something, or powerful point might have been added. Go ahead and throw that in the comments, and uh, by the way, we're putting our feature at the beginning this time instead of burying it. I don't know, for all of you who are watching the podcast, if this makes a difference to you or not. But we're gonna try it out. So, how'd you
Yeah,
feel about it, Theo?
I liked it, man. We can do more of that. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. If the
Yeah.
people like it, right? If they don't, they say, go back to the way it was. Hey,
Yeah, we're
you
just gonna
listen.
run. The algorithm tells me what to do. You like me, do. I am the
I
robot now.
I don't do anything without the algorithm. Yeah, that's kind of where we are now. Mr. Benja, how was your week?
Week was good, man. We got into talking about this AI stuff, and at a time where we're both using it. You told your story about, how does this work out for you? Oh, this is great. Um, so I'm writing a book, and I don't use AI to write the book. I have most of it outlined in the beginning already, and by the time I started considering it, it's not even a consideration. It was just too late in the book. But now what I'm doing is I'm sending it snippets and saying, hey, if you were this type of reader, what would you think of this? And asking it to critique from different angles. And it's like, oh, this is far too wordy for something in the second chapter. You want to save this heavy meat for the end. I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could move that. Yeah. And just, it's like an editing coach now, just
Hmm.
talking back and forth through parts of it. And it's very interesting because I turned off my AI, went, sat down, was doing something, was writing. And as I'm deciding, because I print it out and then I write notes on the paper, right? I'm like, okay, let me move this part here. And at one part, I stopped and was like, I should load all this back up into AI and ask it, because I don't know what the fuck to do by myself. And I was just kind of like, it was this weird feeling of like, AI could do it all. But then I was like, no, no, what are we talking about? I'm just going to move it here, move that there. I already made the note over here in the margins. Man, I got this. And it
Hmm.
was just this weird feeling of, I don't know, whatever. But it's challenged me, actually. The way I've been challenging myself. So now I'm like, okay, ask me the hard question. You're right. I can tighten that up. I'll finish this even faster doing this. And I'm sorry, I got to drop that whole section, whatever. But it's, as opposed to having a person right there all the time talking to me, if I know that I have to check in with the AI and say, hey, here's what I did today, and here's what I've been done for the past 3 weeks. Tell me how it is. And they're like, hey, listen, you're slowing down. I'm
Mm,
like, really? It's like, yeah, you've got less hours and less words made, so you're slacking. I'm like, crap.
that's interesting, man. You're using it more like a accountability partner, right? To kind of keep you on task, to kind of hit certain. I'm assuming milestones. Is that correct?
Yes,
Mm.
to hit my metrics properly, or just not hit them, to watch over them. And it's
Hmm.
like, hey, why are you slowing down on Thursdays? I'm like, oh crap. I use a time tracker,
Hmm.
and it can export to CSV. So if I'm like right now, I'm running the podcast. I have a button called the podcast button. So I hit the timer and it starts. So it saves all my blocks of time. So then
Interesting.
later on I can send the CSV and be like, hey, this many words. Here was my logged schedule, and here was this and that. It's like, these past 3 days, you basically done nothing but cook and eat. And I'm like, how'd that happen?
Mm. That's
Accountability.
interesting. Yeah, okay. I might have to look at it to do it that way. I'm using it more as a out for my book. Like, message was, but as I'm writing my book, I'm using Claude to kind of create like a outline. So what I try to do is kind of think of general frameworks, right?
Hmm.
Of my different chapters, like what general principle am I trying to get across in this chapter,
Yeah.
and then from there, if I go on these tangents, I'm using it to kind of say, okay, hey, create this. Like, for instance, I had an idea when I was writing when I do my outline. It said, I said, you know what? This is a good framework. Could I create a ChatGPT app to kind of help people do a question survey to determine, where they fit in this framework? I said, oh yeah, I can. So I created that real quick, put it in there, and it's okay. Get back to the writing. So I use it more as like frame, kind of keeping all my outlines together, but also if I go off a little tangents, there's little insights I can put into it. So, but yeah, you're right. The high level stuff, I try to don't go into chat GPT. I kind of come up with the higher level, themes and principles I want to get across, and stories, of course, and then let chat GPT flesh those out as I need to. So yeah, but yeah, I think, yeah, it's funny. Is everybody using it differently? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it's a thing, but no, using it as accountability and along with the time tracker and everything. I kind of threw the time tracker in there as part of that story, but they actually started separately.
Mm.
Um, I started tracking my time more often, and that's just been a whole exercise. So when you ask me how's my week, I can say, well, according to the tracker, I'm doing very well, thank you. Uh, yeah, just continuing on the book, man.
Well, I
Not
think that's a smart thing. I mean, if you are using, if that's part of your book process too, or it helping you with time, and your book is around, jotting ideas. If there's some things, that's what I'm learning too. It's like, why can't I create a customized, GPT for this that could be added to the book, right? So why not?
Mhm.
And then add as a bonus. So yeah, so those are some of the things I'm thinking too. Is like, what other things can we do to kind of make the book more valuable?
Yeah, there's so many 48 laws GPTs out there, man. It's funny now, and
Yeah,
people are making it off of other people's content, which is interesting.
yeah.
And
But they can't get you, Mr. Benja. They can't get you the brand, the essence. It could be another 48 list, but it's crap. Because there's people who, let's be honest, they're ripping off Alex Hormozy, creating these faceless YouTube channels that people written off Myron Golden. If you got 1 million followers or 100,000 followers, even I guarantee there's people ripping your content and just creating faceless stuff, right? And so that's the question that the gurus are going to have to be faced with. Like, how do you, stay relevant and stay uniquely different as more and more of these faceless YouTube channels start taking your content, ripping it,
hey, man, you got to go outside, shake hands, kiss babies.
create more events. That's why they create more experiences. Yeah, it's a whole piece. We'll
Whole
talk
thing,
about.
whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah, we'll talk about it later.
but that was about it. Real quick, we were talking last week about Streamer University. Good episode if you guys check that out. Um, you said, I mean, it's a whole weird phenomenon, but you said chaos is the fundamental ethos of live streaming. I thought that was kind of crazy because the live streaming thing that he did, Streamer U, Kai Cenat did this whole big event where he brought a bunch of people to a university and they just live streamed for 4 days, and it was crazy and chaotic. So, what did you mean by this? Chaos is the fundamental ethos of live streaming.
well, I think I got that directly from that article. I sent over to you, so I can't take
Okay.
credit for that. But for someone who's not familiar with streaming, I'm just curious: is that the key to streaming, right? How do you stay interesting over hours of time? And when you watch Kai Cenat's, stuff, right? I think he's always
Hmm.
doing, like, even the way he talks. Sometimes he talks like this, and he's yelling like out of the blue for no reason.
Yeah.
Like, what? So it's just like little things like that is just trying
Yeah.
to keep you engaged over hours and hours and hours of content, right? You may just start
Yeah.
dancing, while you're talking. But to me, I was like, okay, so is that the core ethos of what keeps a live streamer or streamer popular? Because that's in essence what Streamer U was, right? Just a whole grab bag of chaos.
Yeah, as I said, man, it was terribly interesting. And you had this weird rift between the IRL streamers and the desktop streamers.
Hmm.
And IRL streamers, I mean, in real life, what they would do is they would go around, walk around with their cameraman or their, tripod and everything. It's like, hey, listen, I heard they were run out of Captain Crunch. I can't do this without Captain Crunch. So what we're gonna do is go back to the cafeteria and see if we can steal a bag of Captain Crunch. So we'll have it in the morning, and it becomes this whole thing of I'm outside, and they're doing this whole thing where they're IRL in real life, and then the desktop people are sitting at a desktop with the camera talking about some topic, going back and forth with the chat. It's a little more intimate, but it's like watching a movie versus watching TikTok. It's the people who are doing IRL can do the whole get amped up, get wild thing, and it's easier for them to just indulge in the chaos.
Hmm.
And yes, there were quote unquote altercations and
Hmm.
you know going
And
out to the
beast.
club.
Yeah.
It was comedy and chaos. But that's a good question. I mean, I guess there's a place for both. Like in this era of TikTok and everything, we've still got people who really want to get into a 3 hour podcast or a 4 hour podcast,
Good point.
and we've got these two extremes now. So it's weird.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what? That's a good great way analogy. Liken streamers to like a 3-4 hour podcast, right? I mean, we know obviously that long form content still hits. I mean, Joe Rogan is a testament to that, and we know live streaming can work, right? And both of those could easily be replaced by AI, though. Let's be honest, over time. So once the AI gets good enough, so and so it's kind of interesting. Well, because I think human capacity, right? It's just not enough hours in a day for you to create that much chaos, right? Or that many podcasts. So if Joe Rogan starts to create AI, so he could, I mean, heck, he could do double the number of podcasts, right? If he could just clone himself with Gen AI, right? And if that gets good enough, what would be the difference? And then because I don't discount human laziness in this whole equation. If I
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I can make as much money where I instead of being on like 5 3-hour podcasts, what if I just do one 3-hour
You know
podcast
what
and
I just
proliferate
thought
that?
of?
What's that?
What if you were okay? So everybody's all into, let's say, a serious franchise like Star Wars, and you know, in the future, sometime a new movie comes out, it goes gangbusters, and everybody's excited about Star Wars again. Some guy wants to know about the cinematography on the world of Camino, right? It's like, yeah, they went back to Camino, and there was the whole water thing with the guys with the long necks and the big heads, the lollipop dudes, the ostrich lollipops, yeah, the futuristic guys. And it's like, yeah, what about them? Well, is there a podcast that talks to anybody who worked on that? So you can go through that entire list of credits, find some guy, AI generate a conversation between that person and your favorite podcaster. So
Wow.
let's say you don't like Joe Rogan. You want Michelle Obama to have a discussion with these cinematographers and everything who did the scene. And it's like, I don't care that the conversation never actually happened. I might just want to hear that discussion. Michelle Obama, cinematographers on the Camino scene,
Hmm. Wow.
and have
Yeah.
AI generate that.
Well, they're doing it now. Notebook LLM.
Mm-hmm.
Google's
Yep.
version of that to create like two speakers on any topic to create a podcast. I could absolutely see that happening. Now the question would be, if it got too big, I think Joe Rogan or Michelle Obama, if they're using their voices, would be very litigious, right? To see, but I could see someone
Yeah.
already kind of ripping their voices to do that to make a quick buck. So yeah, man, this is wow. Oh, you should have kept that off the pod, man. Guys, we give you some spicy stuff here, guys. This is some good stuff.
Hey man, this is what I do. That's why you need to actually follow the real me. Wait, the real Theo Harvey is him. That's why you follow the actual Mr. Benja. Maybe I should put that in my title. The actual.
Actual. I love it. I love it.
All right.
Well, man, you want to
Comment?
get to comment corner?
Yeah, yeah. As always, we have a couple comments. We check in on people. Thanks for doing the whole thing. I feel like this is like Stanley's mailbag at the end of every comic. There's like the Stanley reacting to people. All right. So from our Straw trailer, that was the Tyler Perry, Taraji Henson movie. This person says, "Is this a stand-up for Luigi Mangione type movie?" Bruh,
Hmm.
that's that's kind of funny.
Yeah,
S-
I like that. That's a
Yeah,
hot take. Hot take. Yeah, man. It actually came out already, so I don't have any thoughts on it. I haven't watched it, so maybe we should do, Mr. Bidger. We should do a live stream of a. I think you could do that, right? Watch a movie or something together, and we can comment
yeah,
on
yeah,
it. Maybe
yeah.
we'll
We
do
could, we
one of
could,
those.
we could do that on, well, at least streaming. I don't know about anything that's in theater.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about that. But yeah, maybe we'll do one of these trailers. We'll do a trailer for it. Then we'll watch the movie, and then we'll get say, oh, that trailer was totally wrong, and here's why. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
people may like to see that. So yeah, we'll discuss that. But yeah, thank you for that comment. I'll go to the next one. At Neil Cheeseburger says, I think the trailer makes it seem a little more shockly than the actual show is. Uh, no,
That
it's
was a
actually like that. I'm trying.
actually in reference to Murderbot, by the way.
Yeah, Murderbot. Thank you, Murderbot. Shockly is a slang term in American English that means something is off, poor quality, cheap, or tacky. Okay,
Wait. You've never heard of schlock?
schlocky, schlock. I have heard of schlock. Thank you, but you know what? I guess I never really understood what that term meant. I thought it was more like cheesy. That would,
Okay.
I guess it's kind of like that. But it's really something poor quality, cheap, or tacky. Um, Yeah, so he says that the commenter says, "Is this trailer makes it seem like that?" The show is actually pretty well made. It's set in the future. I think because they kind of look like puppets or little miniatures. That's what makes it look
Hmm.
a little schlockly in the trailer, or just how it looks. But I've been watching it. It's got a weird vibe to it. It's like
Hmm.
this tongue in cheek kind of scenario, but there's something deeper going on about the character being embraced by the community as opposed to be repelled by it. So it's got a sweet little thing, but it's also got this tongue in cheek quality that's trying to be kind of funny. So yeah, I'm digging it. So yeah, so thank you for that comment. But it's a little bit better than you think based on
Hmm.
if you just go by the trailer. So
All right. Last comment we'll do. We had a short on Palpatine's gamble from Star Wars. We were talking about how Palpatine had this big gamble and he was going to risk it all. And basically, over the course of 6 movies, we see this whole gamble play out. And someone said, and we were talking about how if he had messed up at any time, how things could have gone wrong. That concept you put out there, Theo, blew my mind because I wanted to do a big chart of everything that could have gone wrong and how he would have planned for it and gotten around it or not gotten around it. Crazy that it all seems to work. But one person says Palpatine would say in the original trilogy he had foreseen the future. I feel Palpatine had done enough to get into Anakin's mind that at the point of Mace Windu showing up, it didn't matter. Anakin believed Palpatine was the only way to save Padme, as Windu was the one to directly deny the rank of Master. The only reason Anakin even wanted the rank was to go through the Jedi's vault to hopefully find some way to save Padme. In the end, Anakin thought Palpatine was the only way to feel Palps have played his cards very well. All around, he shot a full court, hoping for all net. Another comment, it's funny you say that. only reason Anakin was in the position to be denied Master in the first place is because Palpatine recommended him to the Jedi Council. Palpatine knew the Council was suspicious of him, so he used that to his advantage to get Anakin to distrust the Jedi. I say all that to say, God dang, I love Star Wars conversation.
Man, y'all go deep, bruh. Y'all go deep.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
I mean, we could go deep a little bit, but yeah, we love all y'all that go, into the minutia and all that. But please give us, look, my only comment to this is like, when you kind of watch these shows, maybe we'll do our own spin of like Star Wars from show versus business standpoint. Like, if I was a business person, would I handle it this way? Like,
Yeah.
Mace Windu or Anakin, would I have done it this way or that way, or maybe, so I think people like those kind of things. Like, a show you can do that absolutely with. Andor is definitely set up that way. It's very, very well put together. It actually makes Star Wars real for a chance, right? For a change. Not saying it never was, but it's all those cutesy, Ewoks here or some foolishness here.
So to answer people's questions really quickly, they wonder how something was so well crafted and was everything put together all at once. Not exactly, and there's a wide range of what was planned, what was unplanned, what just kind of works and what doesn't. What usually happens though is you have a plan of some varying degree of intensity and sophistication and togetherness, and then you start to veer off of that and it's like, well, wait a minute, what if this person dies? Nah, we got them signed on for 3 movies, they can't die. Oh crap, what can we do with them? Can we change them into another character? Ooh, that's a good idea. The script starts to change, and if everything is solid, then it tends to kind of work. But as you're going along, you have these meetings where someone says, dude, we can't do this. Why? Because in this scene, we're flying the Millennium Falcon, and this happens, and and it's like, crap, how do we get around that? So that's what story making ends up being, modern story making. So when it works, it's really something to applaud. Mm-hmm. And the fact that people are going through this Palpatine thing saying, actually, Windu, was the only guy to deny him, that is a great call. And I just love stuff like that. That's all I got.
Nah, I love it. Mr. Benja, man, you want to get into the trailers?
Yeah, man, let's get into the trailers. We got some trailers for you, as we always do, because we love this kind of stuff. And today we got 3. Well, we got some of them, so just watch to see what we do. The first one up, let's see. You want to do them in order? Okay, let's do this one. All right. This is our official trailer reaction for Gen V Season 2 from Prime Video, and we're starting right now.
Welcome back.
Good to be back. Thanks for letting me re-enroll. I'm grateful.
You're an eye twitch away from leaping across this table and ripping my throat out with your teeth. I get why you're upset. After what happened.
Stay behind me.
Hey, you guys!
What the fuck?
I'm Cypher, your new dean. It is time that humans learn that what runs through our veins is true Vought blue.
Nothing good will come of this. Nothing ever does.
We're gonna burn the school down to the motherfucking studs. Let's fucking go.
I will be preparing you to push your powers to their fullest potential. You are not students. You're soldiers, and you will fight.
Bless your hearts and hold on to your butts.
We should run.
What we should be doing is disrupt, break shit, fuck shit up.
Whatever we do it together.
What really happened to my son?
You have no idea what you're dealing with.
Let's go. 3, 2.
Sophomore year is gonna be lit.
I'm digging it.
I have no clue.
Did you finish
All right.
watching the first season, Gen V?
Yeah. I finished watching the first season. I watched that little cartoon bit they had. Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like the characters. I like boys. It's kind of interesting though. It's like we're kind of living in the world of the boys now in our reality. So it's kind of like it's starting to blur the lines of what's real. I mean, yes, obviously we don't have superheroes in our reality, but it's of a piece, if you will, and that's by design. We talked about this on the boys season when they finished. So I'm just curious. I think the boys isn't the boys ending. I think the boys is ending next year. So I'll be curious to see how if Gen V continues on after the boys is finished. But yeah, man. I'm trying to think. Obviously, the very real tragedy of the actor that played one of the characters
Right.
passed away, and they're kind of looks like they're going to incorporate into the storyline, which is interesting. And so I think probably I guess there's all kinds of different ways they could have done it, but it's I'm glad they're going to kind of incorporate it into Chance Perdomo, who played yeah. So the dad played by Sean Patrick Thomas. You know what that guy's from? Save the Last Dance. Remember back in the day? Come on, white girl, this is how you dance, like this. So
Yes.
I hate to conflate the two. I apologize, but it just came to me. But anyway, his dad is gonna have a prominent role. But yeah, I'm glad they're gonna give him a proper send off. But yeah, man, yeah, it's gonna be interesting where this goes. I like all the characters. To be honest with you, I'm looking at the actors and all the characters. Obviously, I talked about this before. Jazz Sinclair, I always liked her. But even the Lizzie character, the one who gets small and big, I think she's a good character. Be curious of where this character Sam goes. He's very overpowered. It looks like he was flying now, so I don't know where that's going with that. So
When he did the hero landing, yeah.
So yeah, it's all of a piece. So we'll see where this all goes, but it's probably going to enhance our storytelling of where the boys is going for next season or the last season. So yeah, I think we'll see if it can stay on its own. That's really my long story short. So yeah, I thought it was from a business standpoint, it gave me everything I wanted. The brand, how they're going to span apart. Now the only thing I did not see, the boys brand is about crassness, right? Gore. Didn't see a lot of that in this trailer. It was more pathos.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, how it's going to play out. So I would give it branding wise a B+ on the business side.
So it wasn't a bad trailer. It was just a trailer to me, and I don't think it really showed too much like exciting or now this character is doing that. It's kind of it all felt a little bit expected. And early on, they even led with a WTF moment, but I didn't know what the WTF was for. It just held no weight for me. It's like, what the okay. I don't know. And a lot of the trailer kind of felt like that to me. It's like, hey, they're going to meet up again. There's going to be blood again. Someone's going to die again. And, as I said, when I watch these things, I like to see that the central theme is being played out in a very apparent kind of this guy, that problem, this obstacle, this is the way, this is a savior. I want to see these elements kind of thrown out there. And I didn't see a lot of that. I just saw, some people, and they played the family kind of music, like, "Hey guys, we're all family. Let's hug, and we all have powers, and we're gonna rise up against the, this guy in a suit." It's like, okay, just I don't know. I just didn't get enough there. I'm dropping it giving it a C.
Okay. So that's interesting.
I've been needing more punch lately. I've been needing more lately. Not that it was bad. I just need more.
Give me that punch, son. All right, man. You ready?
All right. Yes. I was about to say something else, but I'll just continue on. Um, that's because I totally did not have this one queued up. I was ready to run the other one,
Oh, no worries.
but this is how we do. Yes, this is our official trailer reaction to Chief of War, starring Jason Momoa, and we're starting right now.
いけ穴おいいけこう穴をかわななえかい穴
Ooh.
なうえ意味いけある
Are you still the chief who desires peace over war?
Oh, you know why I'm laughing?
Uh-uh.
Yo, man, why did this get me hype? And I'm thinking about The Mandalorian because of the music.
Yeah, and of course the actor that plays the Mandalorian is in this. So
Y-
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Um, I think that they're gonna do it in what's the I don't know what the language it is, but I think they're doing it in the native tongue the whole movie. So you're gonna be watching um
Subtitles.
subtitles at the end. So it's gonna be interesting. Uh, sure. I mean, some action, Jason Momoa
Hmm.
fighting. Trying to think, was there any like what the F moment? I mean, him trying to wrangle a shark, sure. Them trying to surfboard down a dirt road, a dirt hill.
Yeah.
It's just like some different visuals for Hawaii. I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder what is he more the beach though? More the water.
Yeah.
But it looks like just grown up Moana. Man, they all kind of wearing the same outfits. So I kept
Yeah.
thinking about Moana. Where's Moana
That's
at?
a good point.
Um, yeah, Brandon wise, I give it like a C. I mean, it seemed passable. I didn't get a
Hmm.
sense that this is something that I have to watch, unless I'm
Yeah.
just want to know the history of Hawaii. But it should
Right.
have
Right.
they should have did something like uh if he's the god, what is it, chief of war or whatever, it's like,
Hmm.
maybe like, his journey a little bit, like maybe he's a little boy and they're killing people around him and now you see his journey toward becoming the chief of war, something along
Right.
those
Right.
lines. Or if they could have so what's it's just him fighting the whole time, or just but it's like I don't get a
Yeah.
sense of where
There
this
wasn't
could
a
go.
story there.
Yeah, it's just fighting. I mean, yeah, we saw a little story. We saw some English folks coming over on the land, but he wasn't chopping nobody up. I want to see some
Hmm.
chops. Saw some
You know what?
spears.
Yeah. Um, Getting chucked. Uh, you know what? I'm actually gonna rate this a little higher than most would expect. I like the story, the whole setup, and everything.
You like the sea
But
universe? You like the sea
this
universe, don't you?
yes, yes, I do with that hook. Shout out to not having vision. We love that in a movie, um, or TV series. But this one falls squarely in that category of the James Bond type of thing, where it's like there's no real surprise. It's just, hey, look at this guy. He's going to clean up these bad guys. Roll credits. And that's, to me, that's just okay. When you're doing that kind of movie, sure, whatever. If that's what you're doing, let's go. But can they maintain that? Because that is difficult to, maintain throughout a whole movie unless you're doing some intense kind of work like a Terminator 2. It's like bad guy shows up, get away from him and find a way to kill him. Roll credits.
Mm-hmm.
can you do that though? So I'm curious to see if it can do this. But as far as the trailer goes, yeah, man, straight B.
Yeah. Okay. Something to look at and see where it could go. But yeah.
All
Mr.
right,
Benja, man. I think we knocked it out this one. What you got planned for this week?
Oh man, more of the same, man. Getting myself right. We're talking about the 80-20 all the time. My current bottleneck is thinking about nonsense I shouldn't be thinking about. My cousin calls. I've gotten even more heartless, and I'm just like, I'm sorry. Well, I'll talk to you next time. And just be done with it. It's just like, you don't call your aunt. I'm sending letters this time. Thank you. It's just like, and I use my family as an example, but just anybody basically that causes me stress or strife. Someone cuts me off, something that happened in the grocery store. And it's like these little things that'll stick with me for just a little too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I find when I sit down to write, I'm not entirely there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I gotta get in the headspace where I can totally get away from that, so I can jump in that zone quicker and faster and jump out quicker and faster.
Yeah, you got to compartmentalize, brother. No, that's not healthy. Compartmentalize like a bug.
I keep separate jot books for certain things. So if I have a very specific jot book for, hey, when I go through, do this work, and then I come out the other side of it, I just jot in that book. So I had something that upset me, and I was like, you know what? Tomorrow, after I do that work, I'm going to be writing in that jot book at that time anyway. I'll just save my thoughts for then. That little flip in the head, in the mind, it was great. I was like, I don't have to think about it now. I'm going to write it in the book later. It's done. I got 8 hours of not thinking about this because I know I'm going to write it in the book later.
And that's called a soft pitch. Thank you, Mr. Benja, for that. Job book.
More coming this fall.
Great job. Man, yeah, same for me, man. I got a short week because I'm doing some training on just doing better with storytelling and communicating. So trying to become a better communicator with this training next week. So I'll be doing that. And then really kind of thinking about my social media presence over the next 6 months because AI coming. AI coming.
AI coming.
AI coming. Go look it up, guys. So, Mr. Benja, man, it's been great as always doing this podcast with you, man. So, look, everyone, thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and comment at Show vs. Business X, Threads, YouTube, and Instagram. Again, you may be featured, so keep commenting. Listen to us at Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. And go visit us at our website, Show vs. Business. All right, Mr. Benja, have a great one.
Peace.